Welcome back, everyone. In the next couple of weeks, 5 weeks to be exact, I'm going to cover how to write your chapter 1, chapter 2, your literature review chapter, how to write your methodology, your results, as well as your discussion and conclusion. And I will also cover how to write about your contributions to knowledge. So today, let's look at how you write your chapter 1. And do recall that as much as it's the first chapter in your thesis, you will only write it towards the end, just before you submit your work, when you've written all the other chapters. So chapter 1 is more or less like your proposal, except that your tense is different. When you're writing your proposal, your tense is future tense, but you are introducing your thesis in chapter 1, and therefore your tense must change. You must change it to the present tense. So the different subheadings. Firstly, I usually recommend that the first paragraph covers your thesis statement. And your thesis statement is a summary, summarized in a very succinct way, the purpose of your study, the problems, or rather the research problem of your study, why there is a research problem that you are introducing, the significance of your study, and you write that succinctly. And you won't be able to write that before you write your entire thesis. Then the next stage of the next heading of your chapter 1 is your background to the problem statement. It's quite important when you introduce the problem statement to provide your reader with information on why there is such a problem statement. Usually it is a problem in society, a problem in an organization, and here you cite statistics using maybe annual reports. If, for example, you are looking at leadership effectiveness, you might want to cite critical literature around that particular problem, introducing the problem. The next stage, or rather the next title in your chapter 1 is a problem statement itself. I do want to emphasize that this problem statement comes from your literature review. And as such, you only write your problem statement after you've written your critical evaluation of literature or your theoretical framework. In fact, if you have 2 separate chapters for your literature review and theoretical framework, the summary that summarizes the paradoxes in literature, that's a summary that summarizes ambiguities, areas where literature is silent, that's where you put in the problem statement. So a problem statement is backed by evidence in literature. It's in fact your concluding remarks of your literature review chapter or your theoretical framework chapter. The problem statement is where your research questions are derived. So once you've written that problem statement, naturally you want to frame the problems that your research is going to focus on, because you won't be able to address every single problem that you probably have identified in literature or in theory. Even in practice, you won't be able to address those problems in one doctorate or one master's thesis. And that is why we write another heading that's called the study delimitations. What is the scope of the study? What is the study covering and what is the study not covering? So immediately after the problem statement, you have to write your research questions, because your research questions are addressing theoretical problems. Reason is that when all is done and dusted, remember, you will be asked, how have you contributed to literature? So your questions, your research questions, have to speak to that contribution. You are posing questions related to your theoretical gaps, ambiguities, paradoxes. The next important heading in your chapter 1 is significance of the study. This is where you are responding to a question of, so what? If your study is not done, what will happen? Because if your study is significant, you should be able to provide a narrative and an argument that justifies the significance of this study. What will happen if this study doesn't take place? And of course, you want to have a paragraph on how you will be, a word on methodology, how you will design your study. The last part of your study, of your chapter rather, is your theoretical assumptions. What assumptions are you making? You could even be looking at causal assumptions. If you're doing a doctorate, you look at axiological assumptions, that is, assumptions that you're bringing on board in terms of your value systems or your value system. Thereafter, to conclude chapter 1, you then write how your thesis is structured. You can now start to appreciate why you can only write chapter 1 after you've written all the other chapters. Let's pause now and hope you will find this helpful. Next week, we will give you tips on how to write and how to structure your literature review chapter. All the best. Take care.